Express.js interview questions and answers. Beginner means advanced. Introduction. Express.js is a fast, lightweight, and flexible web framework for Node.js, used for building web applications and REST APIs. Express.js is widely used for :/REST API development, :/backend services, :/microservices, :/web applications, :/real-time applications. Express.js provides routing, middleware support, API handling, scalability, fast backend development. 1 to 20. Express.js basics. What is Express.js? Express.js is a minimal and flexible web framework for Node.js. Why use Express.js? Current, lightweight, fast API development, middleware support, scalable architecture. What is Node.js? JavaScript runtime built on Chrome V8 engine. Express.js versus Node.js. Node.js is runtime. Express.js is framework built on Node.js. How to install Express.js? npm install express. Basic Express server. Const express equals require express. Const app equals express. App.listen 3000. What is app.listen? Starts HTTP server. What is routing in Express.js? Get route example. App.get users. Rec res. Res send users. Post route example. App.post users. Rec res. Common HTTP methods: get, post, put, delete. Contains client request data. What is response object res? Sends response to client. What is middleware in Express.js? Function executed during request-response cycle. Middleware example. App.use, rec res next, next. What is next function? Passes control to next middleware. What is Express.json? Parses JSON request body. JSON middleware example. App.use express.json. What is REST API? HTTP-based backend communication interface. What is endpoint? URL exposed by API. 21 to 40. Routing and middleware. What is route parameter? App.get/users/id. Access route parameter example. rec.params.id. What is query parameter? rec.query.name. What is router in Express.js? Router example. Const router equals express.router. Why use Express router? Modular code, maintainability, scalability. What is static file serving? App.use express static public. What is body parser? Middleware for parsing request bodies. What is CORS? Cross-origin resource sharing. CORS example. Const CORS equals require CORS. App.use CORS. What is error handling middleware? Middleware handling application errors. Error middleware example. App.use error rec res next. What is authentication middleware? Verifies user identity before processing request. What is logging middleware? Logs incoming requests. Common middleware packages: Morgan, Course, Helmet, Multer. What is Helmet? Security middleware for Express. What is Morgan? HTTP request logger middleware. What is Multer? File upload middleware. File upload example. Upload.single file. What is cookie parser? Parses browser cookies. 41 to 70. Databases, authentication, and async handling. What database is commonly used with Express.js? MongoDB, PostgreSQL, MySQL. What is Mongoose? MongoDB ODM library. Mongoose model example. Const user equals mongoose.model user schema. What is ORM ODM? Object mapping between code and database. What is async programming in Express.js? Non-blocking request handling. Async route example. App.get/users. Async rec res /. What is promise? Represents future asynchronous result. What is async-await? Cleaner asynchronous syntax. Error handling mechanism. Async error handling example. Try, catch error. What is JWT? JSON Web Token for authentication. JWT authentication example. JWT.sign payload secret. What is bcrypt? Password hashing library. Password hashing example. bcrypt.hash password 10. What is session authentication? Server-side user session management. JWT is stateless. Session uses server storage. What is environment variable? External configuration value. .etem example. Require .etem config. Why use environment variables? Security, portability, configuration management. What is API validation? Checking request data correctness. Common validation libraries. Joy, Express Validator. Restricting excessive API requests. What is API throttling? Controlling request frequency. What is caching? Temporary data storage for performance. What is Redis? In-memory caching database. What is WebSocket? Real-time bidirectional communication. What is Socket.io? Real-time communication library. What is microservice in Express.js? Small independent backend service. What is API gateway? What is reverse proxy? Server forwarding client requests. 71 to 100. Advanced Express.js and best practices. What is MVC architecture? Model View Controller Application Structure. MVC layers in Express.js. Click, model, controller, route. What is controller in Express.js? Handles request business logic. What is service layer? Contains reusable business logic. What is dependency injection? Providing dependencies externally. What is clustering in Node.js? Running multiple node processes. Why use clustering? Scalability, CPU utilization, high availability. What is PM2? Process manager for Node.js applications. PM2 start example. PM2 start app.js. What is load balancing? Distributing traffic across servers. What is Docker support for Express.js? Running Express apps inside containers. Docker file example. From node 20. Copy. Run npm install. What is CI/CD? Continuous integration and continuous deployment. What is API versioning? Managing API changes safely. API version example. app.use API v1 router. What is GraphQL with Express.js? Query language alternative to REST APIs. Rendering HTML on server before sending to client. Common Express.js interview topics. Routing, middleware, JWT authentication, async-await, MongoDB integration. Check callback hell. Check memory leaks, async errors, security vulnerabilities, best practices in Express.js. Modular routing, centralized error handling, secure authentication, input validation. What is security vulnerability in Express.js? XSS, CSRF, SQL injection. What is CSRF? Cross-site request forgery attack. What is XSS? Cross-site scripting vulnerability. What is API documentation? Documentation describing API usage. Common API documentation tools. Swagger OpenAPI, Postman. What is testing in Express.js? Verifying API behavior. Common Express.js testing tools. Jest, Mocha, Supertest. Biggest Express.js interview concept. Middleware-driven scalable backend architecture. Key Express.js interview focus. Routing, middleware, authentication, async programming, and API design. Why is Express.js popular? Lightweight architecture and rapid backend API development. Express.js interviews focus on routing and middleware, REST APIs, authentication and JWT, MongoDB integration, async-await, error handling, security best practices, scalable backend architecture. Key idea. Strong Express.js developers understand middleware architecture, scalable API development, asynchronous programming, and backend security.